Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Adam was looking for an old flash drive he used for company backups when he decided to go through the most hidden drawer in the cabinet. Among insurance papers, receipts, and his wife's personal items, he found something that made him freeze for a few seconds, as if time had stopped around him. It was a pregnancy test. Used. The screen still showed the result, positive. And more than that, the test was carefully wrapped in one of Vanessa's handkerchiefs, stored with the kind of care you don't give to something you just throw away. This wasn't a mistake or an accident. It was a choice. He didn't move right away. He just stared at that object, as if simply looking at it could change its meaning. But it didn't. Adam knew his own body, and his own past. 3 years ago, he'd had a vasectomy. A quick procedure, and he never told Vanessa. At the time, their marriage was already cooling off, with no sign of intimacy returning, and he, being practical, thought it was a way to avoid future risks or arguments. He said he was going for a routine checkup, went to the clinic, had the procedure done, and came back like he'd just gotten his back adjusted. Now, that positive pregnancy test was sitting in front of him. The math was simple. And painful. He put the test back exactly where he found it, closed the drawer, and stayed silent in the bedroom for a long time. He went downstairs, made coffee, tried to work, but couldn't focus. Images started flashing through his mind in random fragments, Vanessa saying she'd been more sensitive lately, that she was tired all the time, that she hadn't wanted wine at the last few dinners with friends. He'd noticed, but hadn't questioned it. Their busy lives made it easy to accept things without digging deeper. That night, she came home smiling. She complained about bad traffic, mentioned running into a friend from the club, and asked if he wanted to watch something together. He said he was tired and went to the bedroom. He went to bed early. Pretended to sleep. And for the first time in years, he wished he had cameras in the house to record the words spoken when he wasn't around. He knew something had changed, and now he was certain he was being lied to. The next day, while Vanessa was out, he called Robert Shaw, his operations director and longtime friend. Robert had been a police officer before moving into the corporate world. He was straightforward, trustworthy, and discreet. Adam told him everything, the test, the vasectomy, the changes in his wife's behavior. Robert listened without interrupting. After a few seconds of silence, he simply said, "We'll find out who it is." They arranged a discreet meeting outside the office, at a quiet cafe. There, Robert gave him the name of Helen Cross, a private investigator they'd worked with before on corporate cases. A former FBI agent, Helen was known for her precision and calm approach to investigations. Adam didn't hesitate. He hired Helen that same night and gave her access to whatever she needed to get started. Meanwhile, he kept up his routine. He took the girls to school, had dinner with Vanessa, attended social events. He acted like nothing had changed, but every move he made was now calculated. He watched everything. Listened twice as closely. And most of all, memorized the small inconsistencies. Vanessa said she was going to Pilates, but came back wearing clean clothes. She mentioned friends who never showed up on social media. Avoided talking about the future. Avoided physical contact. Within days, Helen brought the first results. Photos of Vanessa with a tall man in athletic clothes, leaving together from a private parking lot at a boutique hotel. She was holding her phone, he was carrying a backpack. They got into the same car. Later, they had dinner at a quiet restaurant. Paid with his card. Name, Daniel Reeves. Tennis instructor. Lived just a few blocks from where Vanessa said she had her classes. Helen confirmed the pattern repeated itself. Same time, same hotel, same intimate gestures. Adam felt a tightness in his chest looking at the photos. Vanessa smiling, tossing her hair, leaning on the man's shoulder the way she used to with him in the early years of their marriage. But the worst came next. Helen accessed conversations between Vanessa and two close friends. In one, Vanessa said, "Now it's really going to be different. I planned everything. This child won't grow up in a passionless marriage." The words hit Adam like a verdict. The pregnancy wasn't an accident. It was planned. While still under the same roof, sleeping beside him, she was making plans with another man. This wasn't just an affair. It was a life project. She had built a parallel reality and believed she could keep both going until it was time to discard the old one. Adam spent hours reviewing the report. He studied every gesture of Vanessa's, searching for hesitation. But she looked completely at ease with Daniel. There was no guilt. Just intimacy. Robert showed up at the office early, bringing 2 coffees and not saying much. He sat down, waited for Adam to take a deep breath, and asked if he wanted to see this through to the end. Adam didn't hesitate. He wanted every detail. He wanted to know who he was dealing with. Whether this man was just an opportunist or if there was more behind that smiling face and athletic shirts. Helen got the green light to dig deeper into Daniel Reeves. Within hours, new information started coming in. Daniel's financial history was unstable. Old lawsuits over credit card debts, 2 active loans, and the most alarming, suspicious transactions in the account linked to the tennis club where he worked. Helen followed the trail. She found he made monthly transfers to accounts under other people's names. When she cross-referenced the dates with Vanessa's hotel stays and outings, it became clear he was using the club's money to fund the new life he was building. Corporate credit cards, event funds used for reservations, even plane tickets booked with improperly accumulated miles. It was a trail of embezzlement that could land him in prison. Adam read each paragraph of the new report with surgical calm. His emotions were shifting. From hurt to strategy. From grief to preparation. This wasn't just a domestic drama anymore. It was a conspiracy built inside his own life, using the very resources he provided. Vanessa was funding her lover with the same stability she claimed to admire in Adam. And now they were about to bring a child into the world within a lie. The next day, Helen arrived with new information that changed everything for Adam. Daniel was married. His wife, Olivia Reeves, was a quiet woman who rarely appeared in photos. She had a low-profile social media presence, almost inactive, but still showed old records of their marriage. Helen pulled the address, checked it, and confirmed Olivia had been living with him in the same house since before Daniel met Vanessa. Adam asked for contact. He didn't want revenge. He wanted the full truth. He needed to understand the other side. He arranged to meet Olivia at a quiet cafe, far from any social scene. When she arrived, she seemed confused, nervous about the meeting. But when Adam pulled the photos from his folder and showed her the first set of images, she let out a muffled sigh. Then she fell silent. Her hands trembled, but her eyes didn't look away. Adam explained everything calmly and respectfully. He told her about the vasectomy, the pregnancy test, Helen's report. Olivia listened in silence, then pulled out her phone and showed recent messages from Daniel saying he needed space, that he was confused, that maybe he wasn't the right man for their marriage anymore. Everything pointed to Daniel preparing his own escape. Olivia was being slowly discarded, just as Vanessa planned to discard Adam. Right there in that cafe, an unexpected alliance began to form. 2 betrayed people, 2 ghosts in their own marriages. Adam and Olivia started exchanging information. She gave him copies of bank statements, old club records, and even email screenshots where Daniel requested a salary increase, claiming new family responsibilities. It was as if he was already building his new life with Vanessa and the baby, while dismantling the past he still claimed to uphold. In the days that followed, Helen tightened the investigation. She identified a shell company under a friend of Daniel's name, used to receive funds embezzled from the club. She confirmed Vanessa had also moved money through an overseas account in recent weeks without telling her husband. The case now spanned 3 fronts: betrayal, fraud, and asset concealment. What started as a hidden pregnancy test had turned into a full system of lies threatening everything Adam had built. During a gala night at the tennis club, Adam kept his composure. Vanessa stood beside him, wearing a new dress, complimenting guests, joking about being tired of social media. Daniel was just a few meters away, talking with a group of students. Their eyes met for a second. Vanessa looked away. Daniel gave a sideways smile. Adam watched it all with studied calm. He knew every move, every lie, every dollar taken. And he knew he was surrounding them both, and they had no idea. He didn't need to imagine anymore. He had the full story. Vanessa and Daniel wanted to build a new life, but first, they tried to dismantle his without him noticing. The problem was, he did notice. And now, with Olivia on his side, Helen mapping every move, and Robert handling the legal background, what began with a forgotten test in a drawer was about to become a legal case with consequences far greater than either of them expected. Adam stayed at the table, watching everything with practiced calm. Vanessa greeted acquaintances, radiating confidence. Daniel exchanged smiles with members of the club's board. To an outsider, it looked like 2 separate couples with no connection. But Adam knew what lay behind the polite gestures and fake smiles. He knew what they were plotting while still pretending to live lives already falling apart. During a group toast, Vanessa's eyes met his, and she smiled like she always did. But inside, he was no longer standing beside her. He was 2, maybe 3 steps ahead. Adam's strategy was silence. He had evidence, witnesses, and bank records. The only thing left was to see how far Vanessa would go. And that answer came sooner than he expected. 3 days after the ball, Adam received the official divorce papers. Delivered straight to his office, signed clearly, Vanessa Wallace was ending the marriage, citing emotional abuse, neglect, insensitivity, and other carefully chosen words designed to tarnish the image of a man who, until then, had never faced a single accusation in his life. In the same document, she demanded full custody of the girls, a generous alimony, the right to keep the house, and half of his assets. This was more than a divorce, it was a war plan. The difference was, she thought Adam was still defenseless. That he didn't know about the pregnancy. That he was still confused. She didn't know he had photos, records, messages between her and friends where she mocked the marriage, the perfect wife act, the moments with the kids, the trips she took with Adam while sleeping with another man. She didn't know Helen had discovered she transferred money to overseas accounts under third-party names, or that Daniel used club funds to pay for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and even the plane tickets for their trip disguised as a girls' getaway. Robert read the documents with visible outrage. Helen stayed impassive, only asking if she could formally attach the full report to the case. Adam took a deep breath. In less than 2 weeks, Vanessa gave quiet interviews to women's blogs about abusive relationships, made subtle social media posts hinting she'd been through hard times with Adam, and even took Claire and Julia to sessions with a private psychologist, trying to manipulate the narrative based on their father's emotional distance. Every move she made was carefully mapped. Then, one night, Adam got a call from the police. Vanessa had called emergency services claiming she'd been assaulted at home. She said that after an intense argument, her husband pushed her against the wall and threatened to hit her. When officers arrived, they found Vanessa with a torn shirt, a light scratch on her arm, and her face red from crying. At first glance, it looked like a classic domestic violence case. The officer tried to contact Adam immediately, who answered the phone in the middle of a video call with an investor from Philadelphia. As soon as he heard the accusation, Adam responded firmly, without hesitation, "I don't even live in that house anymore." The officer noted the statement but explained that a report would still be filed and protective measures evaluated immediately. Vanessa handed over a torn shirt and reinforced her claim, asking for urgent restraining measures. The scene looked rehearsed, but protocol was followed. What she didn't expect was that every corner of that house had been under hidden surveillance since the investigation began, and the entire act she staged that night had been recorded from start to finish. What she forgot was that the house where the incident supposedly happened was fully equipped with security cameras. Not just outside. Adam had discreet devices installed in every interior room after discovering the affair, as a personal protection measure during the divorce process. The recording showed Vanessa alone in the living room, practicing screams, scratching her own arm to create a superficial mark, then tearing her blouse with scissors before throwing herself on the floor. Daniel arrived shortly after. They whispered for a few seconds, Vanessa got into position, and then she made the call. With that video in hand, Adam knew she couldn't keep up the lie. It was the missing piece to dismantle everything, and he chose to present it at the right moment, in front of the right people. In court, Vanessa arrived dressed modestly, hair tied back, face worn, as if she were living a tragedy worthy of sympathy. She had 2 lawyers by her side, ready to defend the story that she was a victim of an abusive husband. She'd already given quiet interviews, posted hints online, and tried to convince the court that everything she did was to protect herself and her daughters. But she didn't expect Adam to show up with more than just a defense speech. He walked in with a closed dossier in a black folder and an expression mixing exhaustion and determination. He was ready to dismantle everything, in front of everyone. The judge opened the session directly. She asked Vanessa's lawyers to begin, and they followed the same script, said she'd lived in constant fear, had been intimidated for years, was emotionally fragile, and only wanted a safe fresh start for herself and her daughters. They confidently claimed Mrs. Wallace had been physically assaulted by her ex-husband inside their home, presenting the torn shirt and the police report as evidence. They requested sole custody, generous alimony, continued residence in the house, and immediate separation from Adam. When it was time for the defense, Adam stood up, looked straight at the judge, and asked to present evidence before any statement. Granted, he handed over the first set, the home security footage showing Vanessa staging her own assault, creating the scratch, tearing her own blouse, whispering with Daniel before calling 911. The images played in front of everyone. An uncomfortable silence filled the courtroom. Her lawyers tried to interrupt, but the judge stopped them with a gesture. Next, Adam presented bank records of Vanessa's hidden transfers, conversations with friends where she clearly stated the pregnancy was planned with another man, and then paused. The judge asked if there was more. Adam looked at Vanessa, whose face was already panicked, and said, "She's pregnant with another man's child." Her lawyers exchanged glances. "And I can prove it." From the bottom of the folder, he pulled out the medical report of the vasectomy he'd had 3 years earlier. The document was stamped, signed, and up to date. It showed the procedure was still effective, with no chance of spontaneous reversal. Seeing this, Vanessa's eyes widened. She tried to say something but stammered. Her lawyers were visibly lost, with no argument, no reaction. "She never knew about this procedure," Adam continued. "Because I never thought I'd need to protect myself from the woman who said she loved me." The judge leaned forward and said directly, "This woman has serious issues. A pregnancy planned with another man, attempted fraud against the state and her own husband, judicial manipulation, and faking a crime. This will have consequences." The verdict followed quickly. The house would stay with Adam. So would custody of the children. Vanessa would leave with no rights to the home, no fixed alimony, no assets. She'd only be allowed supervised visits. And more, she would face charges for attempted procedural fraud and perjury. At that moment, Vanessa's lawyers requested a break. 20 minutes. They left the room with her, as she walked with her head down, mumbling incoherent phrases. When they returned, all 3 looked defeated. One lawyer stood up, asked to speak, and announced, "Our client is willing to withdraw all accusations. In return, she requests only a symbolic alimony and controlled visits with her daughters. Adam calmly stood up, straightened his jacket, and replied, "I decline. To the end." The judge placed her hands on the table, looked around, and declared, "Request denied. The court has already ruled. Mrs. Vanessa Wallace will be notified of new legal actions and will answer to the charges in criminal court. The custody case is closed. The house remains with Mr. Wallace. This session is now adjourned." Vanessa looked around as if expecting someone to reach out. But all she saw were serious, uncomfortable faces. She left the room without a word, humiliated, exposed, defeated. She thought she'd walk out on top. Instead, she left through the back door. She had to give up the house, her daughters, and still face legal consequences. As for Daniel, justice came even faster. Adam handed over all the documents Helen had gathered, proof of fund diversion, unauthorized transfers, payments made with club resources. The board launched an internal investigation, and within a week, the case was formally sent to the prosecutor. Daniel was arrested as he left the court where he gave private lessons, with students still waiting for him. He was taken away without resistance. Images of him in handcuffs, wearing his club uniform, face down, spread through local groups, website headlines, and office whispers. Their downfall was complete. Not because Adam sought revenge, but because he chose to face everything with dignity, strategy, and truth. They dug their own graves while he remained standing, even with a broken heart. And when justice was served, there was no applause. Only silence. Because the fall of liars isn't entertainment. It's consequence. With the case over and the favorable court decision, Adam breathed freely for the first time in months, no longer weighed down by suspicion. The house, once tainted by lies, became a home again. He cleaned the spaces, removed everything that reminded him of Vanessa, the photos, the decorative items she chose, the perfumes she left in the bathroom. Her absence, contrary to what he feared, didn't bring emptiness. It brought silence. And in that silence, he rediscovered the sound of his daughter's laughter, quiet mornings with pancakes, dinner conversations without tension. Every small moment with Claire and Julia became a reminder that, even after so much destruction, beauty still existed in simple things. He started picking them up from school more often, helping with homework, taking them to parks on weekends. He reorganized his work schedule to be more present, even canceling trips and delegating responsibilities he used to handle personally. Gradually, the girls began sleeping better, eating with more appetite, and asking fewer questions about their mother. They sensed that in this new routine, there was truth. Stability. Adam never spoke badly of Vanessa to them. He just said Mom needed some time, and they'd be there, steady. His mission now was to care, protect, and make sure his daughters never carried their mother's betrayal as their own wounds. At work, Adam created a new department focused on family security and prevention of domestic fraud. He used his own experience to develop protection protocols for clients going through separation, custody battles, and asset disputes. Helen was invited to lead the division. Robert stayed on as director but also took on a role advising on sensitive cases. What Adam lived through became purpose. He didn't talk about it with pride, but he didn't hide it either. When needed, he shared his story with other men broken by the same kind of lies. And at the end of every conversation, he always said the same thing: you don't have to win with anger. Just with truth. On an ordinary night, sitting in the backyard with Claire asleep in his lap and Julia hugging a book, Adam looked up at the sky and thought about everything he'd lost, and everything that remained. The marriage was over, trust was shattered, dreams of a happy family turned to ashes. But peace had returned. And with it, the certainty that integrity is what's left when everything else is taken from you. Vanessa tried to destroy his name, his dignity, and his relationship with his daughters. She left with nothing. Daniel, now in jail, lost everything he thought he was gaining. And Adam, instead of seeking revenge, rebuilt. Not with hate. With values. Because in the end, the real winner is the one who stays whole after the storm. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.